Hey, this is Rob Anspach, and welcome back to another edition of E-Heroes for those keeping count. This is episode 292, and my next guest, we're going to talk about your superpowers. And maybe you don't understand what they are right now, but I guarantee you ADHD is involved. And so what better way to bring on my next guest? This is what she does. So I want to welcome Mineela Chand. I hope I pronounced that right. I know we practiced this and I probably still
Yes.
screwed up.
It was good. It was good.
But I've been an entrepreneur since a full-time entrepreneur since 1995. So we're going on almost 30 years. And I've learned to adapt what I do to the
Mhm.
people and the products that I serve. But it's not always easy and it took time. I used to bust my butt like everybody else and go out there and hustle and grind, work 10 to 12 hours a day. And then I come home and I was burned out. And
Yeah.
so I started reducing my hours and now I'm
Mhm.
down to about 4 hours a day, which gives me plenty of time to get what I need to do done and
Mhm.
then go off and do other stuff like take naps or actually do other stuff.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think that we as entrepreneurs just continuously want to work, work, work. And I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I think we're driven to try to fight our ADHD.
Mm.
I don't think some people accept that they have it.
Let's see. So, what the research actually says, right, around entrepreneurship is that it's about 60%. 60% of entrepreneurs who are um, ADHD. And so not everybody who has ADHD becomes entrepreneurs, and not everybody who are entrepreneurs have ADHD. We just happen to um, make up the predominant thing. So there's a difference, however, between the ADHD entrepreneur in the sense that some choose that intentionally, and then there are others who choose it because they're not fitting into a work or corporate environment. So they feel like it's the only
Mhm.
option that they have is to become an entrepreneur. So, yeah, so sometimes I run into ADHD entrepreneurs who are a little bit resentful of having to do entrepreneurship, because they would prefer to work for someone. Because it's so much easier with ADHD when someone tells you what to do, they tell you what the plan is, they tell you what the goals are, they tell you what the strategy is, and there's constant feedback, right? And there's also a sense of urgency that keeps the ADHD or kind of motivated to do what it is that they need to do. Entrepreneurship, however, is a totally different ballgame
Mhm.
because there is nobody taking attendance. There's nobody, that tells you, hey, you know what, you missed that deadline. I need you to get it into me right away.
Mhm.
Um, so just, stepping, backtracking a little bit, one of the things that you mentioned was that ADHD has superpowers, right? But the thing about me is that I don't um, just stress superpowers. I also stress the kryptonite, right?
Mhm.
It's because ADHD can be actually quite debilitating if you don't understand it, you're not self aware, and you're not doing all of the things that you need to do to maximize the superpowers and minimize like all the kryptonite.
Mhm.
So, yeah, so with entrepreneurs, you get a lot of entrepreneurs who are like, I hate this, I don't want to do this, but I have to because nobody else will hire me or I can't hold down a job. So it gets really, really difficult for them. So it's not as easy as it sounds sometimes to say that ADHD is kind of like this thing that helps us do what we do. There's all
Oh,
kinds
and
of
and
other
we
other
get
stuff.
distracted. We get distracted by the shiny
Yeah.
objects. We
Oh yeah.
and there are programs out there that are supposed to help, like
Mhm.
Monday and Slack and all these scheduling things. And to me, they're
Yeah.
all obnoxious. I can't stand them. and I refuse to use them. And I
Yeah,
look at them and going, "Oh my god, that is kryptonite to me," because that
yeah.
slows me down. I feel like I have to be accountable to this program
Mhm.
that tells me, "Hey, Rob, you have to be here on this time to do this, to do," and then you have to report back to us to tell us that you did it. And I'm like,
Right.
that takes too much time and effort and energy, and I could be over here doing the work that I need to do to get it done.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
when clients say, "Hey, Rob, we want to track you and make sure that you're accountable for us, and do you use Monday or Slack?" I said, "None of them. And if you want me to, I'm gonna, if you want me to use them, I'm gonna charge you an extra 1,000 a month because I'm gonna lose productivity on my own."
Mhm.
And they just went, "What?"
Mhm. Mhm.
I just don't do.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is exactly the issue, right, that I have with productivity programs and like calendars and all of that stuff,
Mhm,
right? Like even the books out there that are really, I mean, they're very highly rated and they should be, right? Like things like The One Thing or like some of these business books that actually talk about productivity, right? And they don't work. Like how many people out there actually have more than one planner that is half full,
right.
or the first couple of weeks are full and then they've been abandoned and then I'm going to try it again and get a new calendar, new year, new calendar, and they try all of these systems and they don't work.
Mhm,
um but that makes sense from an ADHD perspective. So the perspective that I use for working with clients with ADHD is what's called an executive functions perspective, right? So there, the model that I use has 11 different executive functions, and they're based on all of these skills that help us to actually accomplish our goals, right? So it can be things like, so there's a list of 11 of them. So there's time management, task initiation, which is the opposite of procrastination,
mhm,
right? So, task initiation, planning and prioritization, organization, emotional management, metacognition, which is the ability to think about your thinking, right? So, just as an example, metacognition would come into play when you're working on something and then you find yourself kind of getting distracted, right? So there are some people who notice their thinking and notice that they're getting distracted and they're able to bring themselves back. But other people, their metacognition skills are weaker and need a little bit more bolstering and a little bit more strategies kind of to keep it contained. Where if they're struggling with metacognition, their mind kind of floats off like a balloon and they don't even notice. And it's like the rest of your day is gone.
mhm,
So when I look at executive functions, I look at where your superpowers are because you do have strengths, right? Just because you have ADHD doesn't mean you suck at everything. It can feel like it sometimes, but you know, you don't suck at everything, and for a lot of people that feels really good to know that there are things that they really do well. You know what? Yeah, I know how to manage my emotions. I know how to plan and prioritize, right? I know how to organize my things. But I really like, so I split it up into what do you do well and evaluating and where are you struggling, right? So, and then working on the struggling piece, but also celebrating the stuff that you're really, really good at.
mhm.
Um, and everybody's mix is different. This is why these boxed in programs and things don't actually work because they either only cover a few of those executive functions or they focus on just one, right? Who was it? There was a productivity person, Alan, it's very popular. Get
Mm.
Things Done. He wrote the book Get Things Done, right? He probably came the closest to
David
um
Allen.
David Allen, thank you.
Mm,
He probably came the closest to kind of looking at what works for different people, but it still didn't include like
mhm,
all of these other things. So I find that his work is probably the closest to thinking about all of the unique ways in which people need to be productive, or the skills that they particularly need,
Right.
because yeah, electronic calendars don't work. Like, electronic calendars I have to use because my clients use them, but I don't find them helpful in terms of to-do lists and time blocking and,
Yeah,
like
because
all of
here's the thing
those.
about time blocking is that
I hate it.
everything
Hate it.
the world does not revolve around that time block that you put in that calendar.
Right.
And so situations will arise
Mhm.
where, you're going, I can't make this time. And then it
Mhm.
screws up the whole rest of the day. And then
Yeah.
you feel like you've just, you know, were involved in a dumpster fire. And that's all you do is put out fires all day. And then you're
Yeah.
apologizing to people because you're late or
Yeah.
for me it was that constant battle dealing with that time block. And I said, I can't do this
Mhm.
anymore. I got to do it a
Mhm.
different way that suits me. And so I only put one or two things on my calendar. That's it.
Mhm.
Everything else becomes flex and I get them done when I get them done. And
Yeah.
and and I tell the client, I said, look, I'm not on your time block. This is
Right.
my terms, my conditions, my business, and you are a client, which means
Mhm.
that you can't dictate my time. I don't care how
Right.
much you pay me. And I'm not always mean to them, but I need them to understand that I'm not there for their whim. I'm not
Right.
there to be subjugated to a calendar. And when I learned to do that, I became more productive in my own business,
Mhm.
working less hours. And yeah, I,
Yeah.
I they always, gurus tell you you should focus on one or two things that you're really good at. Well, I'm good at a lot of things. I also know that I'm not good at a lot of things.
Mhm.
So, I love writing books. I love helping people with their marketing. I
Yeah.
love doing all this other stuff. And
Yeah.
and right now it's tax time, and I help all my family members with their taxes. It's just I'm good at the numbers.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
so there's things that I love to do, but the things that I don't love to do, I give to those people, my team members who love to do those things.
Mhm.
I tried to I've kind of compartmentalized a lot of things so that I give to the team members projects that will match their strengths.
Right.
And I take away the ones that are time wasting that other people can
Mhm.
handle because
Mhm.
I respect that they have ADHD too. And if I give them stuff that just puts them on tangents or wastes their time,
Mhm.
none of us are
Mhm.
going to get stuff done.
Mhm. Yeah, and that totally makes a lot of sense to me, especially how you phrase it with the organizations that you work with or with your clients, right? Are you paying me so that you can manage my time, or are you paying me so that I can accomplish something for you?
Hmm.
Right? Like you can't have it both
Right.
ways. Like, it's either one or the other.
Yeah.
So I would be happy to take money from somebody who would say, "Hey, I'm going to manage your time," right? Like, I'd be happy to, but I'm not going to get done what it
Yeah.
is that you want me
And
to.
and I think we as entrepreneurs equate everything to an hourly scale.
Hmm.
And that may be fine and good, but if someone's tracking you based on hours, guess what?
Hmm.
You're getting paid hourly. If
Yeah.
it's a project job and you work it at your time,
Hmm.
you can charge by the project, which is
Hmm.
actually making you more money.
Right. Right.
Honestly, when someone's tracking you and
S-
say, well, Rob, you only put 3 hours in. Why are you charging me $1,000?
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things that you're talking about is one of the executive functions that actually has to do with goal persistence,
Mm,
right? So this is like the challenge there is you have a really big goal,
mhm,
right? But with ADHD, it's like you only have two time frames, now or not now,
right.
right? Like, that's it. So it's very difficult to keep your mind on being persistent to achieve that long-term goal because we lose track of it. So if it's not in front of you,
Mhm.
you're just gonna put out the fires, you're gonna react, you're gonna do what you need to do today without thinking about, am I headed in the right direction? Where am I headed? What am I trying to accomplish? And yeah, like I have had so many entrepreneurs like come to me and say, I know where I'm supposed to go. I have a complete strategy, I have a complete plan, but for whatever reason, I keep forgetting about this. Like, I
Mhm.
think about it 6 months later, and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I had a plan. Where's that plan?" And you can't even find it,
Right.
right? So you're kind of, like, moving by the seat of your pants, kind of feeling like, "Am I doing all the right stuff?" And you get distracted by all the stuff that is immediate, but maybe not necessary or critical to achieving
Yeah.
the long-term goal.
Having a little bit of flex time allows me to help
Mhm.
clients who need help right away.
Yeah.
I had a client the other day, and it was a new client, and I have access to their website and everything else, and they said, "Rob, something's going on. Can you quickly fix it?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I was out and about, and I had my phone. I went in, and within 5 minutes, it was fixed.
Mhm.
Like, wow. The other company would have taken 2 or 3 weeks to finally fix it. There's a pro and a con to that. Yes, I gave them immediate service that they didn't need to
Mhm.
get immediate service because they weren't expecting immediate service.
Mhm.
Um, but now they're gonna expect immediate service the next time I do, that they're gonna ask because I've done a kind of a Scotty from Star Trek,
Yeah.
would have taken 3 days now, I've gotten it done in, 5 minutes, and
Uh-huh.
so
Mhm.
it's but, ah, some of my clients are happy because I'm able to do that right away. Some of them, time equals money,
Mhm.
and to get them back in business makes me the hero. Do I always wanna be the hero? It's nice on paper,
Mhm.
but, my other philosophy is no good deed goes unpunished. So, I'm gonna get probably reamed out next time something goes screwy and it's my fault or it's their fault or I just couldn't fix it.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, what would you have done in that situation if you had looked it up and you realized, "Oh, this is gonna take half an hour to do. It's not a 5-minute fix, and
Right.
I happen to be out with my family at
Mhm.
the moment," right? I can't just go in and do a quick thing. How would you have handled that situation?
Yeah, if I go in and look at it, it's gonna take a little more time. I just respond back to him and
Sure.
say, "Look, I'll deal with this in about 2 hours when I have some flex time or more flex
Yeah.
time." Uh,
Mhm.
but, little fixes and I've been out with, my wife and friends. We're at dinner and my phone flashes and like, "Oh, do I wanna deal with that?" And,
Yeah.
I'll just text back, "What's the problem?" They'll tell me, I'm like, "Okay, that sounds like I can quickly fix it." And I'm under the table doing one of these things. My wife's looking at me going,
Yeah.
"Leave the phone at
Yeah.
home."
Yeah.
You
Like
know?
with these really, really small things, right? Like the temptation for us is this is really fast,
Mhm.
right? I should just get it done because I'm not going to think about it later,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
I'm
and
going to
and
forget.
and and I will. I mean, my brain goes 100 miles an hour, and so if I
Mhm.
don't do that right now, I will probably forget about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's how we all are. Well, not all of
Mhm.
us, but, a lot of entrepreneurs are that way that if we don't just get it done now,
Mhm.
we'll forget about it and it won't get done at all. And,
Mhm.
and I used to be that way, you know,
Um,
uh, uh, I would procrastinate and I just put things off until the point where it's like, okay, well, I forgot about it. I don't have to do it
mhm.
now.
Mhm.
And,
Yeah.
that just,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think that's the right way either.
Right. Right. See that's the big piece around ADHD, right? Is that I think the critical part around managing your ADHD is getting really, really familiar and being self aware
Mhm.
about what your ADHD actually looks like, right? Where do you struggle? Where do things fall through the cracks, right? And working on those things and also being really clear about where are my strengths and doing more
Yeah.
more of that, right? So if you're that aware, you can kind of be like, yeah, you know what, this is a little bit of a pattern. What can I put into place, or who can I delegate this to?
Mhm.
So it's not messing
Right.
with my business and my relationships with clients and my work life balance and my energy and all of that.
I was,
So,
I was away, and I had promised my wife, I said, "Okay, I'm not touching the phone." Something did come in, and I said, I can fix this, but why don't I just give it to one of my team members?"
mhm.
Gave it to my team member, and, the client just yelled at my team member
Oh my goodness.
because it wasn't me, and demoralized my team member, and he called me back, and he texted me through WhatsApp and told
Mm.
me what was happening. I had to call the client up, and then she started yelling. She says, "Don't pawn me off to your team." I said, "Look, you're fired." She said, "Well, I'm giving you all this money." "Don't care, you're fired." And that was the end of that. And
Mm.
well, I thought it was the end of that. Then
Uh-oh.
she hired another service, and this other service was probably charging a fifth of what we were charging.
Mhm.
And they would email me every day. How do you do this? How do you do this? How do you? And I'm like, I'm not telling you all this stuff. It just I don't understand people sometimes.
Mhm.
You're. I was a struggling entrepreneur at one time too, but I had to learn all this stuff. And
Mhm.
now you just took a job away. Well, I fired the client, so yes, it's their client now, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to train you on how to deal with them.
Well, the other option is you could have charged them for consultation.
Yeah, they didn't have any money.
And you didn't want to. Yeah, so that's the other option. It's like, "Hey, you know what? It sounds like you need some coaching and some consultation around the issues in your business, and here's what that will cost."
But yeah, but here's the thing is that I think as entrepreneurs, we want to please everyone. We want to accept every client that we can. We don't
Mm,
we don't always figure out if that client is ideal to us.
mhm,
And yes, they might be handing us a lot of money, and we're thinking, "Wow, this is great. This is awesome." But they become the biggest pain in the asses ever,
yeah,
and then we
yeah,
start regretting everything that we've done. And for me, it's like every day I wake up with this sense that hey, I have another opportunity to please somebody or upset them. It could go either way.
mhm,
But
mhm,
I know lots of entrepreneurs who give up because they've had a bad week or a bad month or even a bad year. Like I said, I've been doing this for 30 years. You
mhm,
know, sometimes the bad outweighs the good, but you keep doing it because for me, it's always been this sense of freedom and legacy. You know,
mhm,
I didn't become an entrepreneur for the money. I became an entrepreneur because I can't work with other people. I mean, I tried, and like you said at the very beginning, we look for things that make us feel whole. As an entrepreneur, I felt whole. I felt like everything was about me in control. I worked for
mhm,
other people. I couldn't call the shots. I couldn't, hey, your prices are too low. Like I couldn't raise, and it was just hard for me to say, hey, you know, I can't work for you. You know,
mhm,
um, and
mhm.
plus, I could have never made the money that I make now working for someone else. And
Yes.
it wasn't like I said, it wasn't about the money, but it was about you know giving my family more of what I thought they needed. You know, take
Mhm,
more vacations, do this. And I look at people today, they're struggling so much, working 2 or 3 full-time jobs just to make ends meet, and I'm thinking, "Wow,"
mhm,
I'm glad I became an entrepreneur because I can dictate, you know, not only what I charge, but how much I make. If I
mhm.
wanna take time off, I can. Yes, there's some downside to it, but
Yeah.
I think that I think everybody out there should experience entrepreneurship for at least a year of their life to
Mm.
know if it's right for them.
Yeah. I think you've hit on something, a pattern that I see with the ADHD entrepreneurs that I work with, right? Is that those who kind of stick with it, it's not, the money doesn't motivate them.
No.
It's never the money that motivates them. They kind of see money as the outcome
Mhm,
of doing what I love doing, what I want to do, feeling free in my life, creating something better for myself, finding a place where I can kind of function and be
mhm,
freely who I am,
mhm,
right? Um, so money is never the motivation,
mhm.
right? It's all this how do I want to feel situation and
Right.
how do I want to show up in the world for the people that I love. So but they also recognize that if I am feeling free and I'm feeling happy and I feel like I'm being like, doing what I'm supposed to be doing with my family and they're feeling good, then it's easier for you to show up in your business and do the things that you're needing to do, right?
Mhm.
So the question is always like, is it the business that comes first or is it who you are and how you feel that comes first,
Right.
right? So I truly believe that it's always about how you feel. Like how you feel is the biggest driver of how your business is going to go. And a really big part of that, which is like a lot of the other part of the work that I do, is the mindset stuff,
Mhm,
right? Like, how do you stay in that place where you are always feeling good, regardless of what is going on outside of you,
mhm.
right? And it's not necessarily about always feeling good, but it's always about searching and chasing after that feeling that feels better,
Right.
right? So, yeah, yeah.
You know,
It's
and and
money
and
has never been the motivation.
and most of us have these phones. These phones are great. They're tools,
Yeah, mine's here.
but they can be the biggest distractions in the world.
Yes.
And so,
Yeah.
one of the things that I've done is I've turned all notifications off. I don't want to be Pavlov's dog. I don't want to be
Mhm.
reminded of someone wanting me, dinging
Yeah.
constantly.
Right.
I check my messages a couple times a day,
Mhm.
but I'm not controlled by this thing.
Yeah.
Um, and I've seen people that aren't entrepreneurs on this thing constantly, and I'm like, no wonder you can't hold a job. I go in the grocery store, and the person at the checkout counters, in between scanning food, they're checking their messages. You
Yeah.
know, it's like,
Yeah.
put it away.
Yeah.
Focus on that one thing that
Mhm.
that is in front of you right now.
Mhm.
And,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah, multitasking is not a thing.
mm,
It's, neurologically, it's not possible, right? And what multitasking really is cognitive switching,
mhm,
right? So you can switch from one thing to another, and some people are better at it than others.
right.
However, ADHDers are not, and you're a lot more productive when you've got one thing on your desk that you're working on. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
get rid of the distractions.
it's funny. On my office down here, there's a plaque that I won back in 2012, and it's called "That One Thing."
Mhm.
It was that one marketing piece that set me aside that made a lot of that money, uh, the one year. And when I presented, this one idea to,
Mhm.
this group in Philadelphia that I was going to, um, I had won this award. It was one thing, and I look at that every now and then, and it reminds me that, we need to just focus on one thing at a time.
Mhm.
It's whether it be our marketing, whether it be, the people we deal with, whether, whatever it is,
Mhm.
it's always that one thing. Always.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Be here now,
Hmm.
right? Be here now. Um, and put your attention with put your attention into what is in front of you. That's how you're going to get the best work out of anything or the best experience out of everything because you're there fully.
So
Yeah.
what made you want to help entrepreneurs, that have ADHD?
Um So I do two things. I actually have two businesses. So one is a private practice as a therapist. So that's kind of, you know, um, where the trauma work, depression, anxiety, ADHD, all of that stuff kind of sits, right? And then
Mm,
I have another business where it's all coaching and corporate training and, all of that. So I moved my ADHD coaching into my second business. So what I was finding was that in my private practice, because I have corporate experience before I became a therapist,
mhm,
one of the things that my business people and entrepreneurs were never asked in therapy was, how is what you're coming into therapy with impacting work?
mhm.
Your relationships at work, how you're striving at work, productivity, all of that kind of stuff. So I was asking that question, right? Because you're a whole person,
Mhm,
and whatever you're dealing with in your private life, you bring into your work life, and whatever you're doing in your work life, you bring into your private life, right? So, and then when I did ADHD work with people, with entrepreneurs, I would be like, hey, you know what? I think we need to check in with the fact that maybe you might be ADHD because I'm kind of hearing some things.
mhm,
And once we got them diagnosed and it was confirmed, and I was usually right, um, the entrepreneur would have like a better understanding of how their brain is wired,
mhm,
right? And then all of a sudden we started doing like the coaching within their entrepreneurship, and how do I do this, and can you help me with this, and can you, like I'm struggling with this, and how do I prep for meetings because I'm really anxious. And so that's kind of how I got into that. And even after I finished therapy with them, they would ask me, hey, do you think you could like continue to coach me around my ADHD so that I can stay on track and kind of figure out like how this works? And I'm like, well, that's a whole different thing, right? So yeah, so I stopped doing ADHD work in my private practice and moved it specifically into the coaching piece. So I tend to work with a lot of individuals who are late diagnosed. So late diagnosed is they are anywhere from like 30s onwards. Later in life, they got diagnosed with ADHD because it was missed, right? So ADHD tends to flare when there is increased responsibility, right? So, and more freedom, and you have to manage your time more independently from other people. So it tends to flare when kids start school, when they graduate to middle school, when they graduate to high school, because, as they go through their educational process, they're expected to be more and more independent, right?
yeah,
When they start college, when they get their first job, when they get their next promotion, right? Because things shift and change. When they get married, because now all of a sudden they have a responsibility to another individual.
mhm,
When they have their first child, when they have their second, third, fourth child, if they have more children, and when they begin to manage other people, because now not only do you have to manage yourself and
mhm,
your projects, but you have to manage other people as well. And then with entrepreneurship, when you start a business on your own, you learn very, very quickly. Nobody, like I said earlier, nobody is there with stick,
right.
over your head saying like, "Hey, I got your paycheck. You got to do this thing or else you don't get your paycheck," right? Um and all of a sudden you become completely independent,
Mhm,
and it can totally throw you off. And if you don't have somebody to support you or coach you through that process to help you find the systems and the processes and the strategies and help you understand your brain, um, it can be a really challenging thing. So sometimes I see a lot of ADHD entrepreneurs who they have a very viable idea.
mhm,
Like it's a very viable idea and it could make them millions and millions of dollars, but they just can't pull it together enough to actually get it to market.
yeah,
So, yeah, so entrepreneurship can be, and then when you're looking at entrepreneurship, the ADHD will pop up again if you scale. And when you scale to the next level, when you take on your first employee, when you have your first team of
mhm,
people that you are working with, because one employee is a lot easier than a whole team of people,
yeah,
right? So, yeah, you want to try and keep as wearing as few hats as you possibly can, because the stuff that you don't enjoy doing will take will drain the energy from you to do the things that you actually do enjoy
Yeah.
doing,
Mhm.
right? Like taxes, but that doesn't seem to be your problem.
No, I do it as a courtesy because, you know, I think a lot of tax advisors charge too much. I have the
Mm,
program already, and I can save my
yeah.
family members money, and
Mhm.
and it just doesn't take that long to do, and it's just,
Yeah.
I do it, once a year, so it's not something I'm doing every day. If I did it every day, I think I'd lose my
Oh,
mind. But
yeah.
doing it over a 2-month period for probably, 2
Mhm.
dozen people,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. Because that's very time limited. It
right.
has a very clear beginning and a very clear end, right? But if
Mhm,
you are a solopreneur who is using QuickBooks, who needs to put in their numbers on a regular basis and stuff, usually what I see with entrepreneurs when they don't have the support or they're not at a place where they can actually hire an
mhm,
accountant, they fall behind on their bookkeeping,
mhm.
right? So these next 2 weeks, there are a lot of entrepreneurs out there who are ADHD who weren't doing that little thing every day because it's
Oh, yeah.
really boring,
I have,
right? Who
I have my
are
corporate taxes prepared probably the first week in January, so they sit there for 4 months, and, people are like, "Why do you do them so early?" I said, "'Cause I need to have 4 months to know how much I'm gonna pay the IRS." And,
right,
so it's like, "Okay, well, you owe this amount." I'm like,
right,
"Okay, well, I already have it set aside, but I'm not
yeah,
gonna give it to him early. I'll wait."
right,
And,
right, yeah,
but I just I remember my first business. I would get the taxes all done where I give them to an accountant, and they're like, "Hey, Rob, you owe thousands of dollars." And I'm like
I don't
and
have that.
2 days before they're due, and I'm scrambling to come up with the money.
Mhm, mhm,
People, you
yeah.
have all year prep. Make sure that money's set aside.
Right. Right. But see, that's one of the things, right? If it's out of sight, it's out of mind. And money is often out of sight on a
Mhm.
day-to-day basis, right? So you got to make it visible or you need to put it somewhere where you know you can have easy access to it
Right.
because sometimes it can be just as easy with the impulsiveness too to say to look at the bank account and say, "Oh, I got money for that." And then then you spend it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a really, really difficult time for ADHD entrepreneurs, for a lot of them who haven't gotten a good handle on their money
Mhm.
situation and all of those little things that need to be done on a regular basis to keep that up to date.
Mhm.
So they're scrambling, like
Yeah.
they're scrambling to get their stuff in right now. A lot of them are going to put in what do you call it? You know, that thing where you say, "Hey, I'm gonna be late for my taxes
Oh,
this
yeah, an
year." An
extension.
extension, extensions,
Mhm.
right? And I mean, I even know somebody who was told the IRS doesn't start coming after you until you've had like 6 or 7 years of unpaid taxes. Like they don't look at it, right? So, yeah, so I know an entrepreneur who just went like right up against the wall of that 7 years and they were like, "Oh god, now I need to like get 7 years worth of taxes
Mhm.
in." And then on top of that, you've got ADHD tax, right? Which is all of those penalties that you pay
Mhm.
for not having, which is up to 25%,
Yeah.
right? Maximum 25%. So, it can be costly, right? It can be very, very costly to not know what's happening
Yeah,
with
so that
your
mean
ADHD.
and I think that everybody, that's listening, needs to have systems in place. If you know that you're ADHD,
Mhm.
have systems in place that help
Yeah,
you, overcome a lot. If you don't like taxes, that's fine. If you don't like numbers, that's fine. But start an account that only has a
your
portion of your
taxes.
taxes and
Mhm,
put into that every single month. You
mhm.
know, if you're an entrepreneur that you pay yourself last, which I
Yeah,
know most of you do. I pay myself first because I think that's
yes,
important.
right.
Um, but you put that money aside every single month, and you could put it in something that earns 5%. I mean, even Apple now has their own savings account that pays you four and a half
Mhm,
percent. To put the
mhm.
money somewhere that's earning something. So at the end of the
Right.
year, when you have to give it to the IRS, you've already earned some money on that money.
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
don't wait
Yeah.
till the last minute because your brain's gonna figure out, "Hey, I'm not gonna do this because I don't wanna do it. It's too time consuming. It sucks." I get it.
Mhm.
I've been there, but you gotta change the way you do things, and
Yeah.
so I want everyone to head over to, Mineela's site, which is where do they go? Where can they find
You can find me at MineelaChand.com, which is MineelaChand.com. And if you're looking for the ADHD stuff, put in a slash ADHD and it'll take you right to that page. So I think in the next month, within the next month, I'm also launching an ADHD program, which includes training and coaching and all of that kind of stuff, specifically for entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
So that's coming as well. So if you want to send me an email and say, hey, put me on the wait list for this, go ahead and send me an email at Mineela@MineelaChan.com, which is pretty easy. The other place that you can find me to send messages and connect and everything would be LinkedIn. And again, it's just Mineela Chand. There is no other Mineela out there. It's kind of like, Prince or Madonna or Shakira. It's just Mineela. If you put that in, it'll pop up.
Yeah,
So,
this
yeah,
is this
so
is
those are the
awesome.
places. I'm also on Facebook as well. I do have a Facebook ADHD page, which I am a little bit more active on than I have been in the past, which is just ADHD adults, and you'll see my face there, and you can join in on the conversation. It is a public group, um, but if you ever work with me or get the course or whatever, you're going to be in a private group where we can have more deeper conversations about all this. So lots
Yeah,
of ways to get in touch.
and I do wanna, just end with this, on your website, under your kryptonite, which is part of your ADHD is impulsivity.
Mhm.
And I know a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs, have this impulse to buy shiny objects, buy the next
Mhm.
program, buy something,
Mhm.
um, because they think it's gonna help them. And I'm gonna tell you, it's
Mm.
not gonna help you. It's gonna actually make you more frustrated because now you have
Right.
to, force yourself into whatever this program's telling you to do. It's not
Yeah.
gonna-
Programs are not designed and marketed in a way that works for ADHDers,
right.
right? So, for example, one of the ways that courses are marketed is that there's a sense of urgency that's built into the process, right? Well, for ADHDers, urgency is not a good thing because urgency will cause you to be impulsive, and next thing you know, you have signed up for a five-figure course, a high ticket course where you're later kind of saying, this doesn't fit what it is that I want.
Mhm,
Right. And normally, like, so there are certain things that I talk to entrepreneurs about, like, how do you choose the programs that you choose? How do you make them neurodivergent friendly for yourself? Because a lot of programs are not,
mm,
right? They're fixed. This is the box. We're not going to talk to you about anything. And often my ADHDers need more time for a course or more coaching,
mhm,
simply because they move a little bit more slowly in certain areas and then you move really quick in others. So, but impulsivity is not such a bad thing because impulsivity, you could reframe that as risk taking,
mhm,
right? And with entrepreneurship, risk taking is important. It's just learning, where do I risk and where do I don't, and how do I know a risk is good versus a risk that's going to get me into trouble,
mhm,
right? So, for example, last week I did a 3-day audio live, a series on limiting beliefs on LinkedIn, and I only booked it like a couple of days earlier
mm,
because I was like, "Oh, I want to do this," and I just kind of impulsively went and scheduled it and created it and all that kind of stuff. And it was like one of the best things that I had ever done because I got connected to people, and it gave me that confidence that I needed and I was looking for to show up more more visibly,
mhm.
right? So impulsivity is not always a bad thing. but having the wisdom to know when it's helpful and when it's not, that's a whole other
Yeah, I
conversation.
mean, my last book, Unscripted, Unfiltered, on Woo and on
Mm,
Guru was basically just me taking 7 conversations that I had with my co-author, Steve Gamlin, actually
yeah.
on the eHeroes podcast, and these 7, interviews were over a 5-year period, and I thought, "You know what? This is great. I'm just gonna condense all these interviews, I'll transcribe them and put them into a book." And
Mhm.
I laid them out. I went through and quickly edited it. I sent it to Steve. I said, "What do you think?" And he goes, "This is brilliant." He goes, "I just love the flow. I love how it looks. I love how it feels."
Mhm.
And, we put it out there for the world, and
Mhm.
it's just getting a phenomenal response. And it was just one of
Yeah.
those things that I thought, "You know what? I'm not gonna." Everybody, reads my Rob Versus books, and they're very sarcastic, and they've read a
Yeah.
lot of my other books, which are more educational. But this one is just a conversation book between 2
Mhm.
people, 2 entrepreneurs, and it was just, I just felt like putting it together.
Mhm.
And it's gotten us both on more podcasts than we can, you know, and it was just
Yeah.
it's fun stuff. And I think
Yeah.
when you can run your business through with some type of impulsivity, that's great.
Mhm.
But do it on your terms, not on somebody
Yeah.
else's terms.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's got to have enough fun attached to it that you can see it through to the end,
Right. Yeah.
right?
And
Like,
and
it's gotta
and
be fun.
and the book wasn't one I wanted to make money on. If
Mhm.
someone comes to me, "Hey, Rob, I don't have enough money to buy the book." Fine, what's your address? Or what's your email? I'll send you a PDF, or I'll send you the physical copy. Or,
Mhm.
it was just one of
Mhm.
those things that I thought everybody needs to learn how to do this.
Right.
But it also contributes to the legacy that what do I want to leave behind in the world?
Mm.
You know? And so for me, it's I had this hard time in early on in my career because I suppressed my personality, my sarcasm. When I started allowing that to showcase through social media, everywhere else,
Mhm.
mm, I was getting jobs left and right because people felt like they could connect with me.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
made it funner for me. I made it, well, I can't say it's always funner for other people, but those people who didn't like humor, didn't like sarcasm, aren't going to contact me.
Yeah, and
But
you're not gonna wanna work with them
right,
anyways,
yeah.
right?
So
I love that word, funner.
funner.
I love it.
So, you got to do things that. And I understand these big companies, they wanna bring in a lot of these things, a lot of these terms, I get it, but ultimately, you need to make sure that your employees feel safe, are respected, and it
Mhm.
doesn't matter about anything else.
Right.
So, it's we have to and this is why I compartmentalize a lot of stuff, because I want them to be respected, I want them to be doing work that makes them feel good and not this just busy stuff.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Good job with being a great employer.
it's took me 30 years to figure it out, but, you know,
Sometimes it's as simple as, "What would I want and how can I give other
I
people that?"
but you also look at, okay, I know that, when you look at my desk, you think a nuclear bomb went off. It's not the greatest organized desk in the world, but I know where stuff is.
Yes. It's an organized bomb. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I know it just keeps me motivated, keeps me, going, and so, people are like, "Well, where
Mhm.
do you find stuff?"
Mhm.
I know where it
I
is.
find it. Yeah. You don't need to worry about it as long as I get to get you to give you what it is that you need. You don't need to worry about it. I have it under control.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's, yeah, ADHD, I never thought, I was that person until
Mm.
I realized that, I'm knee deep in shit and I can't get out. It was because of my undoing. How do I fix this?
Yeah, and, that's a really good place for us to end, that ADHD isn't it's hard. ADHD is hard
Mhm.
simply because, our brains are wired in such a way that the world is not built for us.
Right.
Right? The world is built around this is the box that you need to fit into. This is what productivity looks like. This is what a good career looks like. This is what success looks like. Right. And it doesn't, and the world is built around all of that stuff strategies, processes, calendars, like Outlook.
Right.
It doesn't always work for
Right.
us. Right. But what do they use at work? And you're forced to use it. So it's it doesn't fit because it doesn't fit how the world is built, right? So there's nothing wrong with you. What's wrong is the way the world is built,
Right.
which means that you got to create like your own world where you can succeed and thrive, right?
Yeah.
And create your own environment. So, yeah.
So everybody that's listening, if you want to create your own world and learn to thrive and survive, contact Mineela right now and go to our website, which I'll have linked down below. Or if you're listening to this on audio,
Mhm.
it's MineelaChand.com.
.com. Yeah.
And we'll end with that. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. Adios.
Bye, everybody.